Hi guys! Welcome back to Star Wars The Old Republic Lore and Codex. Today will be a bit different than the previous ones because I'm not going to focus on any class, story, characters, anything. I'm only going to focus on a planet. Or actually, it's a moon. It's one of the moons of Yavin. Yavin 4. So, since I'm not focusing on any character, I will also read the lore that's from both sides, Republic and Empire. And also, since this is probably gonna be a bit longer than the usual ones, because there's a bit more stuff here, I will not be leaving much of my own thoughts into this. It's gonna be long enough as it is. So what I will say though is that if you feel like discussing some of this in the comment section, you are free to do so, and I will happily have a conversation about this or other Star Wars related whatchamathings, whatever. Alright, let's just get to it. Yavin 4. More than 24 moons orbit the outer rim gas giant Yavin. Of those moons, the one designated Yavin 4 is by far the most habitable, supporting a vast array of flora and fauna within its lush and endless jungles. Yavin 4 also holds a great deal of interest to the Jedi and the Sith. For well over 1,000 years now, the dark side of the Force has flowed through Yavin 4 in an ever-increasing magnitude. But those who visit the moon's deadly rainforests and swamps in search of an explanation for the phenomenon rarely return, and never with any answers. Massassi. It doesn't require much of an imagination to see that the hulking Massassi are genetic cousins to the Sith pureblood. Both share the same distinctive skin tones, skeletal ridges and body tendrils. Both are also force sensitive, though the similarities typically end there. Nourished by the dark side of the Force, the yellow-eyed Massassi have developed a culture based around hunting, combat, and violent ritual sacrifice. On Yavin 4 in particular, the Massassi are markedly different from purebloods. These impossibly strong warriors have developed dense and sharp claws on their hands and feet, and their intellect has diminished to the point that they rely almost entirely on animal instinct and use grunts to communicate. Their society, such as it is, has devolved into true barbarism. Krakjya. The golden-hued and black-striped pelage of the Krakjya instills in those who behold the tropical feline a notion of majestic beauty. But maintaining that affectation would be a mistake. Krakjyas are savage predators, acting only in regard to self-preservation without anything resembling decorum or elegance. Powerful back muscles allow Krakjyas to leap great distances and pin down quarry several times their own weight, long enough to render it lifeless with their long, sharp teeth. Even the great Massassi warriors of Yavin 4 know better than to face a Krakjya without lots of backup. The Coalition. One of the most profound developments of recent times will not be shared. It will not be celebrated, and only in the softest of voices, in the most secure locations, will it be discussed. Acting largely on their own, the Dark Councils, Darth Mar and Jedi Grandmaster Satil Shan have agreed to a temporary truce amongst their forces, going so far as to plan and act in concert against their common foe, the Revanites. If these coalition forces are successful, if they can put aside their differences long and well enough to stop Revans' mad scheme, it would be seen as a bridge to a more permanent agreement. While some might welcome such a scenario, others are all too content to see their differences worked through on the battlefield. They would never compromise their ideologies, even if doing so could spare the lives of millions. The Joint Task Force. In response to the Emperor's return, the Republic's Strategic Information Service has begun to assemble a joint task force with the sole purpose of finding the ancient Sith ruler and destroying him at last. Initially proposed by SIS agent Theron Shan, the organization will eventually include representatives from the Jedi Order, Republic Special Forces, paid consultants from the underworld, anyone who can contribute to the Emperor's downfall. As with anything in the Republic, it's possible that politics may play a part in the group's final assembly and resources. But given that its founding members witnessed the return of the Emperor firsthand, it's unlikely that anything will be allowed to impede the task force's progress for long. Sith Intelligence. Even before the collapse of Imperial intelligence, the Dark Council yearned for an agency of their own design, with Sith Lord Lana Beniko taking a role equivalent to that of Minister of Intelligence. The Council can better ensure that their interests are being met. Beniko's role in uprooting the order of Revans agents within the Empire further cements the sound logic of her appointment. Rumors have taken root that Beniko's authority is being shared to some extent with a former commander of Imperial intelligence, but this has neither been confirmed nor denied. The primary goals of Sith Intelligence do not appear to have appreciably changed from its predecessor. They exist to gather substantive data on past, present, and future persons and organizations of interest, to quietly develop a stable of varied and valuable assets throughout the galaxy, and, above all, to protect the Sith Empire from threats both without and within. The Emperor's return. In another time, it might have been cause for celebration. It might have emboldened the Empire, breathing new life into their efforts to crush the Republic. But with the Sith Emperor's apparent reawakening comes the common knowledge that he is no longer interested in ruling over the galaxy. Instead, he seeks to consume it. The Empire's highest-ranking officers and dignitaries are now in a state of heightened alert, and the Dark Council has assembled a contingent of powerful Sith seers to get a fix on the Emperor's presence. When he makes his move, it is believed he will not distinguish between former friend or foe, as they will all eventually become his food and none will remain. An omen most dire. The Sith Emperor stalks the galaxy once more. Whether his return from the brink of oblivion is the result of the Emperor's own dark manipulations, or merely the result of a terrible convergence of events, his ultimate goal remains the same: to consume all life in the galaxy as fuel for his own immortality. Despite this chilling turn of events, hope remains. The Emperor's plans have been stopped before, and the Republic is in a stronger position than ever. But the future is always in motion, and the manipulations of the Sith are never predictable. Imperial Guard Academy. Before the Emperor's apparent demise, the Empire's greatest non-force sensitive combatants were selected for the Imperial Guard to serve and defend the Emperor himself. But being selected and developing into a guardsman were two different matters entirely. The Emperor chose worlds strong in the dark side for his academy's locations, where his influence was strongest, where he could form a bond with his would-be guardsmen. In these academies, the candidates would undergo a relentless, merciless training regimen that included regularly scheduled battles to the death. Regardless of what kind of person entered an Imperial Guard Academy, if they survived, they would emerge as a home-to-perfection killing machine molded to the Emperor's will. Commandant Iven. Iven first drew the attention of the Imperial Guard as a hardened slave who fought for his life almost daily in the combat arenas of Saiost. Sent to the Imperial Guard Academy on Yavin 4, he quickly impressed by dispatching dozens of fellow cadets along with multiple training commandants. But Ivan's murderous, unchecked rage was defiant in nature. He resisted the indoctrination process and the Emperor's dark draw longer than any other, until the strain of resistance became too much and his mind snapped. Once in the Emperor's thrall, Iven became the most ruthless of all the guardsmen, never allowing his intentions to be questioned, nor abiding attempts to be reasoned with. In his later years, as a training commandant himself, Iven had a candidate kill rate of over 80%, making for a smaller but ultimately stronger Imperial Guard. Lord Darkspanner. Before becoming the backbone of Revans' campaign to destroy the Emperor at any cost, the Order of Revan was a small, subversive cult started by Sith Lord Tarry Darkspanner. She believed in her heart that Revan had never truly died hundreds of years ago. She was correct. But her devotion to the enigmatic figure revolved around her theory that Revan had quietly overthrown the Emperor and, having been found out by the Dark Council, was locked away. Darkspanner learned the truth of Revan's fate when the man himself appeared to her in a vision, beckoning her to leave Dromund and seek him out. Impressed with all she'd accomplished as the self-appointed master of the Order, Revan offered Darkspanner the opportunity to expand the Order's roster and purpose. Now Lord Darkspanner serves as one of Revan's most trusted commanders, devoted as ever to the doctrine of Revan. To Revans. There has always been a dual nature to the legend of Revan. At his core, is he truly a Jedi or is he Sith? It has been a hotly debated subject among scholars and politicians for centuries. As one might expect, the conclusions reached by those from Republic-aligned worlds often differ from those of an Imperial bent, but not always. Some of the most knowledgeable authorities in the ways of the Force believe that it is right to call Revan a Jedi Knight, and it is also right to refer to him as Dark Lord of the Sith. They contend that simultaneously knowing and embracing both the light and dark sides of the Force is possible, and point to Revan as potential proof. However, many of these same authorities also believe that such divided adherence would lead unquestionably to madness. And so now we come to a part of the Codex that I haven't gotten a hold of on any of my characters, because I think you need to do certain operations and I haven't done any, to be honest. But I never read this part, and when I found that on SWTOR I felt like including it because it looks to be a Jedi Master's journal, so let's just dive into it. The Dark Legacy of Yavin 4, Part 1. From the Journal of Jedi Master Arlo Krenan, during his investigation into the dark side's influence on Yavin 4. Information on Yavin 4 has not been easy to come by, but I have scoured the libraries of Tython, and what I have discovered is fascinating. The first corruption of Yavin's fourth moon by the dark side that we know of corresponds with the arrival of Dark Lord Naga Sadow some 1400 years ago. I'm not entirely sure whether Sadow was drawn here by the dark side or if he himself planted the first seed of its presence. That's one of the many things I hope to learn while I'm here. Sadow was a gifted alchemist who turned his Massassi followers into powerful, violent animals who worshipped and served Sadow. The Massassi built massive temples for Sadow, where they sacrificed their own in his honor. Sadow was even powerful enough to stave off the inevitable. He placed himself in a near-death slumber, which he remained in for hundreds of years, waiting until someone would come to take his place. Part 2. Still from the Journal of Master Arlo Krenan. There was a time when Freedom Nad was only known as an impetuous Padawan who murdered his well-regarded master and then fled to parts unknown. But we now know that Nad fled here, to Yavin 4, thirsty for insights into the dark side. Even now, I can feel the corrupting power he must have felt in the halls of those temples. Nad's arrival reawakened Naga Sadow, who took Nad as his apprentice. When Nad emerged from his training, he destroyed Sadow and took his place as Dark Lord of the Sith. As far as we're aware, Freedom Nad never physically returned to the halls of Naga Sadow's temples, but he wasn't entirely finished with the place either. Centuries after his own demise, he would influence another Jedi in training to repeat Yavin 4's dark cycle. Part 3. Just as Naga Sadow trained his eventual replacement, so did Freedom Nad's spirit find a powerful apprentice in Exar Kun. And just as Nad killed his Lord Sadow, Kun destroyed Nad's spirit here on Yavin 4. These notable deaths likely served to further imbue the moon's temples with dark power, further fueling the barbaric Massassi, as well as the succession of Dark Lords who would later reside here. I think Kun saw what Naga Sadow had accomplished here with his Sith alchemy and architecture and decided he could do better. He forced the Massassi to build new temples, but this time with a focus on complementing and augmenting the dark side. Kun even went so far as to use various technologies to manipulate the Force in ways that I can't say I understand. I can't, but I would like to. Part 4. A few hundred years ago, the Jedi Order thought they could cleanse Yavin 4 of its dark influence. They were more aggressive then. I'm actually impressed. The Jedi bombarded the world from orbit with a destructive manifestation of light side power in the hopes it would free the moon from its dark embrace. The attacking Jedi destroyed much of the life on Yavin 4, which they later worked to restore to its previous state. They thought they'd won, that they'd removed the influence of the dark side. How wrong they were. The Massassi are still here. The dark side is still present. I would not be surprised if Exar Kun's spirit remains, waiting for someone, a Jedi like myself perhaps, to find him. Part 5. I thought I would find Exar Kun. I believed like a fool that I might be next in line. I felt its pull, the dark side. I yearned for it, yearned to be taught everything, to become more than what I am. What I found instead, what found me, is exquisite, terrifying, perfect, perfect. Revan is coming. I vowed to do everything in my power to stop Revan, but he does not want me to. He chose this place. He knew this day would come. Knew the very core of me. Everything. Vitiate, I will make you stronger. I will grant you the only sustenance I know to give. I will become a part of your glory. It's going to be so beautiful. I only wish I could live to see. So he gave his life for Vitiate. He thought that Vitiate wanted Revan to be destroyed there. Because Revan disappeared, and then we know that he met the Emperor and was beaten by the Emperor and taken. So this Jedi, he turned into the ultimate dark side, because he decided to sacrifice himself for the darkest lord of them all. Yeah, that's an interesting story, and one I've never heard before. So I am so happy I found it, and I hope you are too. And if you have any comments about this story, if you have another take on what really happened, I would really like to hear it. Or any comments at all really about the Codex, the lore. And if you have a suggestion for the next one, I will happily consider them. So, yep, this was a bit different than the usual lore, since we read from both sides. So, until next time, take care, and thank you so much for watching.